Hola, amigos, from across the time-space continuum. I recently rebuilt this raised bed and I converted it to a sub-irrigated planter. So, recording in mid to late February, if you're considering a raised bed for 2026, or maybe container planting, hang on, maybe watch this and maybe I can save you some headache. I made this raised bed here, this one showing here in 2015, and it worked okay, but it had a few issues. One, I had to water it every day. That was like kind of a lot of work. Two, with all that watering and ground contact, the wood rotted, like even cedar and treated pine around the edges, this trim. It either rotted out completely or starting to rot. So I was able to salvage most of it, but the wood was rotting, even though it was kind of lined with some tarp and stuff. And also, I had roots from a nearby wisteria, like growing under my gravel and into the raised bed. So, I got several good years out of it, but I fixed all three of those issues and made a better thing by rebuilding it and converting it into a sub-irrigated planter. And I wish I would have built it this way the first time. Highly recommend this. So I wanted to give it one growing season before I share with friends maybe about like how this went. So I'll share a few details, experience from my build and my first season with it last year, 2025. Most of the hassle with this was just figuring out how to do it. So maybe I can help you shortcut some of that. I built kind of a hybrid from instructions from AlboPepper and from Gardening with Leon. You can look them up on YouTube on how to make an SIP or do this in containers, or there are commercial options out there for like 400 bucks or something like that. Okay, first pack, like I moved my wood off the ground, duh, right? Or maybe you could use other materials up here or down here, or you can do this in containers. And you can see that on Gardening with Leon. And then another detail, that guy Aldo Pepper, he built a SIP and then he kind of reconstructed it and he found he had roots, tree roots from the outside growing like under his raised bed wall and growing up into his raised bed because he only ran his plastic like half the way up and there was soil like above the plastic. So if you do this, just run your plastic all the way up to the top, maybe near the trim. And then if you have trees nearby or like maybe like wisteria nearby, the roots won't be able to go between the wall and the plastic and run up into the soil. So leveling, I used a tube water level to level out the soil base. Here's where I cut. So in the corners, I used 8-inch wide cinder block for some stability, and I had to cut a few of those. And then along the edges, I used 4-inch wide cinder block. You could use bricks or maybe rocks or whatever. Um, if you have 4 right corners, it should be pretty easy. If you have a few angles like I did, you might need an angle grinder or whatever to kind of makeshift a few different angles. And then folding the sheet. Um, so the sheet of plastic was kind of a pain to fold these corners in. And you can skip all that. If you have 4 right angles and corners, you can just order a rectangular box welded pond liner insert and it would drop right in. And that's what I'm going to do next time. But if you have a weird shape like I do, then you can just kind of wrestle it into place. And then after starting to trim it up a little bit, looks like that. So that's kind of where you can see it. Plastic comes all the way up to the top, so tree roots and stuff won't get in there. And then a little hack, I use two bulkhead fittings down here. So this is the overfill drain. That's when you know it's the reservoir is full. And then I have this second one down here so you can regulate the water if you want and drain it during the winters to minimize, say, freeze damage. And then to build the reservoir, you can use corrugated pipe, or I saved a bunch of plastic bottles and used a soldering iron on each one, like poke a hole on the bottom and the top of all your bottles, and then these fill with water when you fill your SIP. And that'll make sense if you see the other videos from those other guys I mentioned. So here I'm starting to put together the reservoir, and then I'm starting to cover them with landscape cloth. If you're worried about like plastic decay or microplastics or whatever, you can use corrugated pipe, like this stuff here. You can use corrugated drain pipe. But the plastic's all underground and the sun can't get it, so there's no like UV deterioration or anything like that. I'm not worried about it, but if you are, then you can buy corrugated pipe. Starting to cover it with landscaping fabric. And then here it is. I pretty much topped it off with landscaping fabric. I left several of these channels in the middle for some of these soil channels to go down in. So the idea is like some of the soil goes in to wick up water, but most of the soil stays on top of the reservoir so it doesn't get waterlogged. I had some plastic fence that I put on top for a little stability, a little more weed cloth, and then I had a bunch of rags and stuff, like towels and old clothes, and I used that, stuck those down in the channel, and that wicks up the water into like the soil rooting zone. Got a bunch of soil options. You can buy it, you can make it. I used a mix of compost with inoculated biochar, perlite, rice hulls, and coconut coir. And in the bottom first, I put like rotten logs, half rotten logs, and leaves and stuff. And then I put the soil mix on top. I inserted some of these PV pipes with like a T-base so I could build like a cold frame or like add a trellis depending on the season. And so you know it's full when it's dripping out like that. And if you're downhill of a rain barrel, here's the fill coming from the rain barrel. And what you can do in the summer is like when you see rain in the forecast, you can just empty like your whole rain barrel. Like in my case, this thing takes like 100 gallons, so you can empty like a whole rain barrel into this once a week or once every 2 weeks, every time it rains, and like you never have to water, except for maybe seedlings on the very surface, but don't have to water. Wood stays dry. It's just really efficient and easy to maintain. So just picture coming along. Here's a containerized version in the back if you just want to go container version. Cranking along. You'll have this fill pipe. So that's how you like fill that whole reservoir um, with water from a hose or from a rain barrel or from a watering can, whatever you want to do. And just recommend just cover it up when you're not filling it so that mosquitoes don't breed and get out and all that stuff. And same thing on the drains, the overflow drain. Mosquito netting on the overflow drain so mosquitoes can't breed. And you can do container options if you don't want to build all that stuff. Easy peasy, no problem. You can you can check for, so if you want to do containers, check out this guy, Gardening with Leon, a couple videos. Leon's the man. And if you want to get like full instructions on how to like build the SIP, you check this guy out. And I got my pond liner from these guys. And if I were to do it again, I'd try to make it square and just buy a box welded rectangular pond liner. And that way it'd be real easy. This project was supervised and guarded by Chance. Rest in peace. Pour one out for Chance. Hit me up if you want to see this or like talk about it. Bye.